Hey everybody, this is the week 4 recap. We had a pretty eventful week. It started off with Joe's friends who accused him of great sin. Um, it's funny how when you're going through something, the first thing that people tend to think of is what did you do wrong, or why do you feel like you're going through this affliction. And we go over to day 26 where Job is describing the majesty of God. And he basically says in Job 26 and 6 that Sheol is naked before him and destruction has no covering. He stretches out the north over empty space. He hangs the earth over nothing. He hangs the earth over nothing is a sign of God's power. That just put it plainly and simple for me. And then I looked up the term Sheol, and Sheol is an Old Testament term, often dark and gloomy abode of the dead, represent a common grave, underworld, where all humanity goes regardless of moral standing. That struck out to me. Is that the place that the dead went to before Jesus came back? I don't know, but that was interesting um, revelation that I found. Um, then Job says in Job 26, everyone is before God is naked, meaning he knows who you are and what's in your heart. And destruction means that you can't possibly know his wrath. That the wrath of God is just you don't know anything about that. Heaven marvels at God, but also fears him and is astonished by his rebuke. He can stir up the ocean because God feels like it. This is verse 12. He can break the storm. Revelation. If God can stir up the ocean and break a storm, what can He do in your life? And we go down to Job 27, and Job says, as long as he's breathing, he will not sin by his mouth and will not speak wickedness, and he will hold on to his righteousness. The rich man one day will wake up and understand that he will not be rich anymore because in the spirit world, the only God has it all. In Job 28, this was a chapter on finding wisdom. In verse 7 and 8, wisdom is a place where birds can't fly. This place is hidden that even lions haven't walked yet. No man knows where understanding is. No man knows where wisdom is. The price of wisdom is a value far above rubies. And death and destruction heard the report, and only God knows. Verse 28: the fear of the Lord is wisdom. Departing from evil is understanding. That was I think I yelled when I read that. And Job 29. Job talks about the person who he was before this. He had everything. Children saw him and hid. Old people gave them his chairs, and princes didn't even speak against him. Men listened to him and waited. And then we go into day 27. Um, Now the tables have turned. People are now mocking Job and their behavior towards him. They push away him and they rise up against him. Um, this is the other people that knew him in the city, and they all feel like he deserves all the affliction. Whatever he done, he actually did it because it was this how bad his affliction was. And Job 31, he goes through certain scenarios he believed if he had done, then he could see why the judgment was on him. Um, if any one of those scenarios that he talks about was true, then he felt like he deserved that judgment. Day 28, we were introduced to a new person named Elihu. He was the son of Rachel, the Buzite of the family of Ram. So he was standing by listening, and he said he was aroused by everybody's speeches, but because he felt like he was justified himself, he was upset with the speeches because he felt like they justified themselves rather than God. Since he was younger, he waited, and but in Job 33, he says he too is upright and a righteous man, and his lips speaks knowledge. Even though he's pure and innocent, sometimes God challenges him. And God does things to get us closer to him and away from the pits of hell. In Elihu's experience, God will work it out in the end, either 2 times who you were or 3 times who you were. Elihu then says in Job 34 that God repays a man according to his work, but he will never do wickedly or pervert justice. Basically what he's saying is, look, you reap what you sow in this world, and he will repay you for the work you've done, the good work or the bad work. And he asked the 3 the question, if someone who hates justice, should they even govern? Then who will condemn the most just, which is God? And God is not partial to anyone, including princes. He doesn't see the difference between riches or poor. And all the things that works in the hands of God. There is no darkness or death where the workers of iniquity can hide on this earth. And at the end, God knows their works. Day 29. Was that day 29? Day 29, Elihu asked Job, do you think you have more righteousness than God? What advantages do you think that you have over him? He says the clouds are higher than you, and what does God receive because of you? Because of the pride of the evil, he does not answer, and God will never answer empty talk. Elihu describes God as one is perfect knowledge. God is almighty. God despises no one. He is mighty in the understanding and doesn't preserve the life of the wicked. He doesn't withdraw his eyes on the righteous, and God delivers from the poor. And he tells Job later in chapter 36, you are filled with judgment because of wickedness, and God is great. And finally, at the end, Job 37, Elijah further describes the majesty of God. His voice thunders with no restraint. He does great things that we cannot explain. God is excellent in power. His judgment is abundant in justice. He does not oppress. Because of this, men fear him, and he shows them no impartiality. So when Elihu comes on the scene, he's basically saying, wait a minute. I know you were in pain right now. I know you're hurting right now, but wait, stop talking about the goodness of who you are, and let's remember the person that we all serve, which is a God who is perfect. This is amazing to me that a younger person can come on the scene, younger than the years of Job and the friends who are talking, and say, hey man, look, I understand that you're in pain right now, but we got to remember who God is. And if God brought you to this place for a reason, and if you're uprighteous and you are a good standing person in the eyes of God, he's going to see you through this, and he's going to get you through this, and you're going to be twice the person you were. I thought that this week was a good week to kind of, as men, to withhold judgment from other people when they're going through certain things. And when we are going through certain things, we got to keep our faith in him, knowing that we are not perfect, but through him, all things is possible. That's the week for a recap. I appreciate y'all being here, and we will see you tomorrow.